I did think about wearing my Cecilia Smith t-shirt. It's all there. So the USA and Australia played out one of the great games, one of the best games of the year. I would have it in top 2 at the minute. It's that and the second Lions test, probably the 2 best games played this year for me.
Yeah.
I think this possibly is my favourite.
Yeah, I think there's that.
Right
The Wallabies Springboks game was good.
Yeah.
And a game that happened the next day, which was pretty good, pretty up there.
Northampton Leinster is the other game I'd throw out there as well
Yeah.
from the Champions Cup semi-finals.
The good thing is, it doesn't matter.
The good thing is,
all great.
you've got a really strong top 5 there. Like,
Yes.
Good year.
Yeah,
This
not
was
bad.
as good as it gets. This is like as good as the World Cup's ever been. An unbelievable game, finishing 31-all. Undeniably the best game of the World Cup so far. I don't think anyone's going to argue with you for that. And just a game packed with drama and events and subplots and just history being made.
Yeah, it felt like a fair reflection in the end.
I think so.
31-all. It being a really high-scoring draw.
Both teams getting a bonus point, but both teams finishing with a draw.
Yeah. And it reached a point with kind of 10 minutes to go where you were just cheering for whoever was in the ascendancy, whoever was in the 22, because it felt like whoever wins this game deserves to win it. And then when it was deadlocked at the end, it was like, well, if neither of them win it, that's kind of fair enough.
I was kind of cheering for a draw towards the end.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like the way this deserved to go.
Yeah, it was really good fun though.
Yeah.
Especially that second half where it was so end-to-end, but also dramatic at the same time. It wasn't end-to-end in the sense of like people missing tackles in the opposition 22 and someone running 90 metres and then the other thing. Same happening the other way around and so on. Instead, it was just someone would score and then the other team would score, then the other team would have a big defensive moment or win a penalty or have a dominant scrum or maul or so. And it was just like, there was just so many like mini moments like packed into this. And it's just, yeah, great to just go back over it once more just now in the office and just really kind of relive this because it was a proper tasty Rugby World Cup pool match.
Yeah, so much happened. There's so much to get through. The Wallaroos very much started the stronger.
Yeah.
There were moments in that first half where you thought I think they went in as favourites. I know there's some debate over this, but I think most of us would have had the Wallaroos as favourites. And there were moments in which it looked like they were going to take this game quite comfortably. And yet, the entire way, the crowd were always behind the USA. And you always felt this kind of energy with the USA. And it's something I felt very much watching them last week, right? There is this kind of like different energy with them that wasn't there the last World Cup and hasn't necessarily always been there with them in between the World Cup stage. But there's something about like the way the crowd got behind them, a little bit of a Zia Lonamar effect.
Yes.
And
the whole wider Mar family, of course.
Yeah.
Very energetic in the stands.
But there's also something about the fact that like it's not just her. This is a team that's really easy to get behind.
Yeah.
Like a team that's really, really easy to invest in. Like how easy a sell is Hope Rogers as a player to cheer for? How easy a sell is Kate Zachary?
Kate Zachary, so good.
How easy a sell are like so many of these players here, right? Who are like phenomenal to watch.
Chetaremba,
Yeah. And so I think you felt the crowd really get behind the USA and really cheering them on. And they had this kind of like never say die, like we're doing it together. The energy they had at the Olympics last year, much more than any 15s game.
Yeah. It was in a way impossible not to get behind them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, the same happened in reverse because when you think of this Wallaroos backline and how exciting they are to watch, and like any time Desi Miller gets the ball, you just naturally, your ears prick up and you go like, oh, she's off again, she's doing her thing again, you know?
Caitlin House, who is phenomenal, who is like quickly establishing herself as like a front runner for Team of the Year, has been one of the best players at this World Cup. Overall, was possibly the Wallaroos' best player.
Yeah, once again,
one of two. We'll guarantee one in a minute.
It's impossible to convince me that she's only 18 years old.
I know.
I think she's lied on a document somewhere.
Also, there's a growing thing in this game that I didn't sense before this, but there's a bit of the Pollock coming through. You know, there's something in that celebration. The look in her face and like, I know I'm hot shit to her. And all for it.
Yeah, nothing wrong with celebrating.
This isn't a criticism, no. But there's something in the celebration of like, you know what you're witnessing. This is the birth of an all-time great to her. Yeah. And look, that is what Wallaby teams are built. Great Wallaby teams are past are built on.
Yeah.
I want, if this to be a great Wallaroos team in a few years' time, it will be built on the same thing.
It is true though. When you think of the Wallaroos, or the Wallabies rather, you think of like youth. and excitement.
But you think of George Gregan being a shithouse.
Yeah.
You think of like George Smith being, people called George universally, like, Wally would back me up on this. Like, but so David Campese, like all of the Australian greats have a little bit of the like shithouse about them. Swagger, exactly. And Caitlin House came out and at 18 years old was willing to be the heel.
Yeah.
And was like, you're all here to cheer for Ilona Maher as the babyface. She has turned down a WWE call-up, offer. She was like, no, I will be the heel to Ilona Maher's, hero. Like, and was very willing to be that, and I loved it. Yeah. Took her 2 tries brilliantly well. We'll get into more detail in a minute. But just as like a broad reflection, I thought she was like the standout alongside Piper Duck.
Yes.
Who is one of the players of the tournament so far. I thought was the player of the first half, the best player on the pitch in the first half. And second half, I think more players kind of came to the fore and the game changed a bit.
Her battle with Freda Tafuna was phenomenal. Yeah, 2 very different players who were really, really battling.
But yeah, Piper Duck doing everything. Breakdown work, like carrying, made a clean break as well. Line out. But particularly like her tackling, her work rate, her getting around the pitch, her getting back involved, getting back off the ground. Just unbelievable.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of talking points that we're going to dig into this game. But I think it's time for a little bit of analysis to just segue into that.
On a Squidge Rugby channel?
Hell yeah. Because the Wallaroos really built their lead in the first half. And once again, you've got to praise that back line. And it's not just that they have flashy highlight reel moments, but they have built a 10-12 combo in the form of Fatala Maleka and Cecilia Smith, who can get the best out of these, who can put these players into space, as well as Georgina Fredericks outside centre, who are really good at just making this back 3 look as good as they really, really are. So looking at the first Caitlin House try, it's a really great setup. They do this off a maul, and what I really like is, so they're going to play off 12 here, and my favourite part of this is Cecilia Smith is so disciplined on her positioning, because it's so easy as a 12 to crab in and go, I can see the 10 there, I want to run into her. But instead, she essentially, by standing a little bit wider, makes Mackenzie Hawkins almost redundant here as a position. She has to stand there because obviously at any point somebody could run into that gap, especially off a maul. Like someone could break off, Maya Stewart loves roaming and finding gaps and so on. Like she has to stand there. But instead, the ball skips across the face to Smith, who stood opposite Henrich in the 12 channel. Georgia Fredericks runs a good line off her.
Now, I want to pull this up and we'll come back to this. This is going to be a recurring point, right? I think we need to reevaluate something fundamental with rugby here, right? Which is how we discuss assists.
Yes.
Because we only talk about assists as per the football or ice hockey originally where it all began, crediting the assister. Definition of whoever gives the ball to the person that scores, right? And so often in rugby, the person that really creates the space is not somebody who touches the ball.
So true.
And often it is an involvement where perhaps, someone has pinned someone on the floor and they've managed to open up a gap, or someone's run a brilliant line. And this from G Fred in the 13 channel is so good. The way she starts narrow, but arcs herself back inwards and manages to just angle herself to get in the way, right? And she fundamentally blocks 2 tacklers getting across and opens up the space here because she just completely stops the foul before he gets going. And yet sells it in her body language as not a block. It's brilliant. I think she should be awarded an assist for this and not just because he was in my fantasy team.
And equally as well, Maya Stewart's assist on here, because she runs the perfect line out the back of Maleka here, running on her left-hand shoulder. You could pause the frame here. If I told you right now that Maleka's going to pass the ball to Maya Stewart, you would probably go, oh, she could probably score here.
Yeah.
And that is exactly the thought process that Cheta Ember has in defence. And so she flies, she completely shits the bed and goes straight for Maya Stewart, one of the best wingers in the world, one of the best finishers. You want to block her from getting this try-scoring chance. And instead brings it down to A, a brilliant seed by Maleka across the face, and B, a change of angle from Caitlin House, who straightens onto the ball and slides under the posts. It's a perfect execution of this set play, straight off the training paddock.
It's a gorgeous intersection of game intelligence and athleticism, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of pure athletic ability, but also that ability to read the game and spot where everything else is going. And spot, right, both G Fred's block, without necessarily looking up and taking this information in, spot both Ember flying out of line and G Fred's block has opened the gap straight in the middle. Yeah. So instead of going I'm going to arc out and try and fix Ember and then, potentially...
It's not an error by Ilona Maher.
No.
That Cheta Ember is worried about Maher having to cover too many people. And as you mentioned, 3 players in this Wallabies wider backline get the ball here, but every single one of them, including Desi Miller on the opposite wing for holding her width, every single one of them plays a part in this try. Yeah. It's a perfect backs try.
Yeah, it's brilliant and so well finished as well, so well taken. Because it looks simple, right, how to finish. You look and you're like, oh, that's too easy. Then you look at the detail that goes into it and it's just like so complete.
And then for Desiree Miller's second try later in the game, they run exactly the same play.
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? I'm saying G-Fred should have had a hat-trick of assists. Australia scored 5 tries, right? 1 was off a maul. 3 of them, I don't think they score without a dummy line. Or if someone runs a weaker dummy line. Like, Fredericks is one of the... I think now with Emily Scarrett playing less, probably the best at running this line in the World Cup.
I think that's true. I agree with that.
And again, like, if you want to look at Miller's try, but like, so critical is Fredericks' line.
Yeah, 100%. And Fredericks obviously ties in both Ma and Henrich in the midfield. And then Maya Stewart comes round, and now this time Chetaremba changes her position and she tries to double job. It's actually a really smart bit of D from Chetaremba. But instead, this time, when they go across the face to Hals, this time she has Chetaremba in her face, but obviously she can't fly up because she's covering 2 women at once. And Hals throws an absolute peach of a ball across to Desiree Miller, who then gets a 1v1 with Lottie Sharp. Defending against Desi Miller in a 5-metre channel is hard.
Especially when she's got like a 5-metre start outside you. It's a great finish.
As an Australian attack coach, that is what you want.
Yeah.
You want to get Desi Miller into like big 10-metre channels where she's 1v1 with fullbacks. Yeah. Because she takes them 9 times out of 10.
But again, just look at Fredericks' line and the way in which... So, right, when I came to watch this back on the wide angle again, and I kind of went like, oh, that's really smart. What they've done is they've got all their backs running inwards lines so that it looks to the USA players like they're all going inwards and attacking against the grain, when actually what they're doing is they're going expansive. Yeah. And they all change the angle last second. Then I realised that isn't what's happening. G-Fred's the only one that's ran that line. Right, but she makes her line so obvious and so exaggerated that the fact that Caitlin House also starts narrow and then eventually works back out, like she sells it so well that it looks like there's about 3 players running the line.
Yeah.
And then simultaneously, she then bodies someone, makes sure she makes an impact, right? And stops them from being able to drift across completely, creating a bit of a gap which House can then explode into. Yeah. And then, obviously open up the space for Miller to score.
Players like Fredericks are so difficult to defend.
It's completely invaluable, right?
Yeah.
Like, you put her into any team in this World Cup and she'll make them better, pretty much.
She runs so unbelievably straight. Even if she gets the ball there, she can take that and sling it.
Like, you look at House's other try, right? And it comes largely from her running this overs line. She starts running unders, then adapts last second to work around the defender, and they go with her. Because she's just incredibly visible as a runner. She knows that. And so sometimes when she has the ball, that's great because she can beat people and draw them in or whatever and fix people on her to then flip it out. But this game, eyes are on her and you completely miss the player that's actually got the ball,
100%.
right? Like, the defence is not watching who has the ball. They're watching her running a brilliant line and going like, oh, if she runs this line, she'll score. So therefore, we'll drift out because she's drifted out and it opens up a gap straight in front of the person with the ball, which is Caitlin House, who finishes.
Member of this back line runs a really selfless line for that try, with Moleka essentially standing in the USA defensive line. We've talked a lot in the men's game about Sam Prendergast as a player who does this incredibly well, where she doesn't need to take the ball to the line because she's already flat upon it. Now, Malek is a slightly different player to Prendergast in that kind of thing, that she will run a little bit more at the line because she's probably a little bit quicker than a Prendergast type 10. And so she runs off the ball really close to the line. And immediately, knowing that the USA are going to gun for her, she's already drawn somebody in before she's caught the ball. And so she just lifts it straight off her chest to Cecilia Smith, who is coming from deep to flat and running a similar line. And again, she just then lifts it up for both, as you say, Hals and Fredericks running that line around the corner simultaneously. As a USA defensive line, your picture is changing constantly there. Your immediate thought is, I need to tackle the person with the ball. Yeah. Because you go into panic mode at that point. You can't think about the next person.
Yeah. So they cover all these three tries in one go, right? I made the exact same observation. I was going to make it about Sam Prendergast and that Leinster system on the first try, or Miller's first try, which is just look how flat she starts, right? Yeah. They're picking and driving, picking and driving, picking and driving. The really smart thing they do is they pick and drive until they make a Lona Mar make a tackle. She's the 13, she should be the key leader in this line. Instead, it's only the wingers and the fullback out here, right? And so you're left in a situation where you've got people panicking. You haven't got someone able to play 13 and kind of like lead the line. So it's only people improvising at the moment. Really smart, just get her off her feet. She gets back up very quickly and is in, but she's still watching the forward drive. And then they immediately go flat. and you have two players stood there, and Sam Wood spins such a flat, brilliant pass, and Maleka is stood realistically where you'd put a number 8 to drive over, right? And in a split second's time, you can look it up, and I can see you can kind of go like, oh, that's like a centre running a hard line or something, right? Or that's a back rower hitting a line. And she comes in at pace, takes that ball, and immediately slings it back out. And the ball gets wide so fast, but it comes from her starting so flat. She starts 4 metres behind the gain line, right? Which, when you put it like that, almost sounds like a large amount, but like for a 10 who's also standing 50 metres away, that is not.
No.
And also, like, underrated part of this is Sam Wood's pass, which goes so quickly, meaning that the USA can't react to it. They're still looking at the first player there. It has to dart round someone, kind of thread the needle between, and also it has to still be in front of Maleka for her to run onto, so that she's got some momentum onto the ball, because otherwise you take the pace out and you potentially row in this as a try scoring chance. She's forced to carry herself. So really great pass, like really underrated part of this. Just a really crisp bit of play.
Yeah, 100%. And then on the flip side, we have to talk about how the USA then came back into this.
Yeah.
Because I think there's two huge aspects to this. One is the defence and the other one is their forward pack and how much they just dug in and they were like, right, we're in a scrap here.
Yeah.
We are going to just take everything we can out of this. The defence, I think we should start.
Yes.
Freda Tafuna, outstanding, got player of the match, was
Brilliant.
absolutely everywhere. Kate Zachary, likewise.
Kate Zachary might have been the best player on the pitch for me. I thought she was unbelievable. Dropped the first ball she was thrown, but other than that, was just relentless. Maybe dropped it so she could make more tackles, because she was just absolutely everywhere on the pitch. Whenever she did get it, then after that, the way she charged, the way she was just so energetic, it was properly like a, you all get on my back, we're going this way, we're going over the try line.
She has that kind of that Tom Curry-ish thing of just, she just doesn't stop running.
Yeah.
She doesn't realise she's meant to get tired, she just motors around the pitch in a figure of 8, right? And it makes me wonder how she had the discipline to play in the centres before. Like where you have to stay in one position the whole time.
She's got that, but she's also got this really rare aura that very few players have. Like Michael Leach has it.
Yes.
Right? Alan Wynne-Jones had it. Richie McCaw had it. Is there anyone else in rugby
Rachel
at the minute?
Malcolm, maybe?
I don't think Richie McCaw has the same aura.
Sarah Hunter?
Like, I don't even think Sarah Hunter did.
Okay.
Like, I'm talking like top 1 percentile of like players, even beyond that, players who are like, there's something about them where you're like, it's not even like, yes, I'll follow you. It's like, yes, you're going to win us this game on your own. Like, particularly when they're in the form that Zaku's in this week. Like, when they turn up, you're like, oh, we're not losing this game because you're on our team, right? And it'll be partly through leadership and partly through you just relentlessly flinging yourself at everything.
Yeah.
So, like, Tom Curry desperate to injure himself. And I thought she was just outstanding.
Yeah.
Then, you mentioned Tafuna, who was brilliant.
Yeah.
The best performance by a Frida we've seen in a long time, I think.
Yes. Rachel Johnson whilst we're on the
Johnson,
back row.
quietly very good.
Hits absolutely everything. She's incredible.
Hope Rogers playing 80 minutes and winning that scrum penalty with like 3 minutes to go.
Yeah.
Incredible. The greatest player that USA Rugby's ever produced. Hope Rogers. I'll bang this drum for the rest of my life. Quite
Kate
possibly.
Apollo as well.
Apollo,
Unreal on the tight
Again,
head.
80 minutes.
That is the hardest position to play.
79 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. And she was carrying like a demon all game.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have the same reputation that Hope Rogers does on the carry, but she's unbelievably fit. The pair of those props are incredible.
And then the other real stand-up performance, Erica Jarrell Cersei.
Yeah.
Who, where were they hiding one of the best locks I've seen in my life, apparently?
She's so good.
Because she's been good, she's always been like a good player. But these last 2 weeks, you've been like, is this like...
She's a demon, mate.
Yeah.
She's a fucking demon.
This is like beyond anything I could have imagined. Like levels of perfect lock performance.
Yeah.
So good at line out, so good at the breakdown, like wins jackal turnovers, covers so much ground, makes endless tackles, and then scores a try a game.
That try was really great in the way that she spotted the Australian defence overfolding, picks up herself and goes into that. Like, any scrum half who can do that, you'd praise.
She's looking the other way as well, right? So she's looking to pick and go on the other side, right? And then turns immediately and just goes.
Yeah.
And it's that like little subtle body language as well. As you said, like that's scrum half-esque, right? And like looking her up since this game, like Harvard graduate, her brother was one of the top 15 wrestlers in America, like D1, like professional competitive wrestling. She won a Junior Olympics gold medal. She played like 6 different sports to an elite level, only took up rugby because in the first week at Harvard, she got an email saying, "Are you a badass?" And then went, "Yes, I am," and signed up to play rugby because that was what the email was for. And it's just like one of those people you kind of come across, and they only seem to exist in women's rugby, I'm finding, who is unbelievably brilliant at everything on and off a rugby pitch.
Yeah.
And just like, what a player.
Beast
Like,
beauty
what
brains,
a performance.
That's
Yeah.
what it is. But honestly, it makes the perfect second row when you can combine being the absolute hardest person of all time and having the intelligence to then go, right, how can I maximise this?
Yeah.
And her dark arts are brilliant.
It's a little bit pacey Alan Wynne-Jones to me, of like that, like technical ability and understanding, but there is like this turn of pace and athleticism of like a younger Alan Wynne-Jones, I guess.
Sure. And on the Hope Rogers try, in the line out, they have Tafuna as the insert here, as the +1. She takes the ball, and Jarrell Searcy is leading the charge on the maul as they break away. They splinter this off, right? Amosa goes in to make the tackle on Tafuna. However, Jarrell Searcy, still just in front of Tafuna, drags her by the shirt, makes sure that she lands on top of Amosa. So Amosa at this point is having a really hard time because the momentum is all in the favour of the USA because they've been dragged forward by Jarrell Searcy, and she's struggling to roll away at this point. So she is having to, instead of exit kind of like north-south as they call it, like out in the direction where the USA support is coming from, she's having to exit horizontally. And of course, that means she's exiting on her try line. And at this point, Hope Rogers is one of the best carriers in the world, especially with only less than 5 metres to go, with 1 metre in this case. She just goes, great, I've got a target here. Amosa's on the floor. I can literally just flop into the space that she's currently in because she's not legally allowed to obstruct me or prevent me from scoring this try. So I'm just going to put the ball down there. And that's what she does. She just goes super, super low. And because Amosa has had a hard time rolling away, there is space there for Rogers to ground the ball on the floor. And that all comes back to Jarrell Searcy dragging Tafuna to land on top of somebody, meaning they have a harder time rolling away. It's genius.
It's really smart. It's really smart. And there's something of her like professional wrestling background in that.
Yes,
like,
definitely.
Ripping plays, like understanding the mechanics of how you get someone from one position to the next,
Absolutely.
pinning them down, and then always being in control herself.
Yeah.
Right? Like at any moment she can roll out there, she can get out there herself. But is that true, of any of the Australians that end up in the kind of waves following this?
Yeah.
Less so. Like what a player, what a well-taken try to get them back into it.
Super.
Critically, has been reassessed, was initially a Rota Tafuna, and then has been reassessed. It was Hope Rogers who got it down. Tafuna herself said in the post-match interview, no, you've said I've got a hat-trick, I didn't, I scored 2. Hope Rogers got the last one.
I'm sorry if you put her in your fantasy team. You're robbed of a few more points.
Yeah,
there.
I'm hoping they readjust that and I get Hope Rogers and my 16 assists for Jane Fredericks.
Yeah. So, I think there's a few talking points that we need to address.
There's one other USA player.
Oh,
right,
yes,
we have
of
to bring
course.
up. There's one other USA player, which is, you said a minute ago, Beast Beauty Brains. I want to credit Tala Msutu on Blue Sky, who said this, Beast Beauty Breakdown.
Very nice. Very good.
Alona Mar,
Yes.
who was brilliant.
Yeah. And you said in the England game, like that was one of the better games of 15 so far. She's taken it up a notch there.
Yeah, she has.
Where
She really
the
has.
breakdown work that she brought, 3 full jackal turnover penalties. And the thing is, I don't think any of these are ones where you'll chime in and go, oh, it's some genius David Pocock moment. No, it's just her being really strong and having a good instinct for when to go for the ball.
Really smart. The other thing is, right, she wasn't constantly going for them.
No.
She was incredibly intelligent what breakdown she targeted, and she won basically all of them. I think there was one jackal where she got blown off the ball, right? And there was a further one where they won a penalty for, illegal clean-out on her. And she was just incredibly smart in the decision-making in terms of knowing as a 13 that she's needed out wide, right? If she's coming in, it's got to be for a vital intervention.
Yes.
And so she looked to make that in those moments. You look at this one is probably like the pick of them for me, which is Rachel Johnson makes a brilliant tackle here, like straight to ground. She knows the Australian's isolated, and all she looks to do is to ground. And by this point, Alona Mar's won 2 turnovers already on her own, so just let her get over the ball. And there is no attempt at a jackal assist. There's nothing else. There's just Rachel Johnson knows what she's doing. She knows who she's got alongside her, right? And it's learning to feed your strengths. Yeah. And this is something we saw the USA do much, much better than the England game, where we saw plenty of their strengths, right? The likes of Mars carrying, the likes of Hope Rogers, the likes of Zachary, etc. But we saw them do that so much better this week, right? Like, this is probably their early passive attack that almost leads to a try, it doesn't end up in the end. But just like off a line-out ball, look how smartly they get their runners into the game, right? So they hit, ball off the top, they play into Hawkins, who then looks up, right? and you've got two players coming in on a hard line. You've got both centres running on hard lines, and instead she kind of threads it right across the face. Really lovely pass, and like Mackenzie Hawkins got a lot of stick for the fact she kicked terribly over this game, and obviously had the one kick that timed out. But passing game exceptional.
Yes,
like incredibly crisp.
She can
brilliant.
run an attack.
Yeah, and throws this brilliant pass across the face to Tafuna, right? And both centres are so obvious and so square. And so you've got, they're going like, you've got part of them going like, God, Hendricks, huge carrier, and Alona Mar, even bigger carrier.
Yeah.
And instead, they go straight across the face, bam, Tafuna hits a weaker seam of tacklers who aren't expected to make the tackle, barrels over the gain line. Next phase, instead of throwing Mar into the breakdown, which she's very good at, they wrap around and she hits off 9, carries immediately. This gives the time then for Hope Rogers to come around the corner, and Hope Rogers then carries. So you've got your 3 biggest carriers carrying in succession on different lines into different players into a team that aren't aligning, and then they then set up blindside again. And I think they've got sort of Rachel Johnson and a few of the others lined up on that side. And instead, right, pick and go, and Bargel goes through on the open side, like because they've overfolded to watch this like pattern of bam, 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 open side, open side, open side. By the time that comes to be a blind side, bam, they've gone inside, they've made the breakthrough, they go a bunch more, and then they fall once they get back to the other wing, back into that pattern of hitting over and over again, and bringing the likes of Mar and Rogers and so on into the game, and bringing the best carriers in. And it was something they failed to do last week, right? And I do think they maybe could have looked to use Mar in wider channels to carry into that 13 channel and kind of target the likes of.
But she is good at that extra forward role when she does carry off 9.
But
Ruby Tui was on about this on Love of Rugby, wasn't she? Where she was just saying like, just hit her on like short balls, hit her on like cut off 10 or something, or like a short ball off 9. And when they did that, it really worked.
We were saying this last week, like stop using a distributor, right? Bring on crash balls. And they did. Like they were so much smarter for bringing her in and using her as a forward.
Yeah, I think it's Beast, Beauty, Brains in that order, isn't it? Prioritise Beast for sure.
I'd say Brains, perhaps. Beauty's less relevant in the context of this game.
When you're an outside centre or winger.
Well,
yeah.
But I'm just thinking like, would you rather they lost 31, 25, but they were like, but they all looked really hard?
Well, I consider Beauty in a rugby sense as a winger to be like speed.
Okay.
Like whereas Beast, I'm thinking pure brutality in the carry, which she has really got down. But I completely agree with your point there on Mar. Yeah. But I think there are a few more just turning points and talking points of the game that we have to discuss. A couple of them you just brought up there. So one of them, early on in the game, Mackenzie Hawkins got timed out on a conversion, and the ball obviously fell off the tee as well. So that obviously didn't help things, but she didn't look in any hurry to take the kick as it was. No. So that, in a game that ended up 31-all, is quite costly. Hawkins also missed a conversion between the posts where she hit both uprights off the back of this. And as much as she had a great game in terms of attack management and her passing game was unreal, right? And she was still the best person for the job to play at 10 in that USA team, her line kicking, especially in the second half when she had wind against her, it was a problem because they would often go sideways or maybe only 5 metres forward, right? When they're better off actually tapping and going at that point when they're not making...
You make 10 metres off a tap.
Or you just kick it down the middle of the field, right? And you're not going to win the ball back, but at least you can get some kind of territory off your... You have to make a decision of either possession or territory. You don't get both off a penalty.
I thought Emily Hendrick had a great game.
Yeah, she was brilliant.
However, this is the risk of taking Alec Kelter out, right? It's that she is a goal kicker and she is an alternative kicker to kick down the line as well.
Yeah.
And they took that out of the team. And even just having that on the bench, I think might have been really useful.
Yeah, agreed.
Because that became a real issue late on when they won that penalty off the scrum in like the 77th minute. They could have attacked into 22. Like the win was behind them at that point.
Yeah.
And yet, instead, they made it barely up to the 10-metre line. And so it completely changed the momentum of the game. And then you throw in, as you said, the goal kicking, which was an issue. And Mackenzie Hawkins is probably feeling awful about this.
Yeah.
And
she hit a great one at the end of the game.
And is a great player. And I thought had a broadly good game in every other area.
Agree.
But like line kicking and goal kicking both went very badly.
Yeah. Sam Wood also missed a very gettable one. So she is one of the top-end kickers you'd think in this tournament.
Yeah.
And she missed a bit of a sitter towards the end as well. Granted, lots of pressure on. But both kickers I'd imagine will be really frustrated with themselves that was how the game ended with that possibility. However, talking of the actual end of the game, I think the last point we have to talk about is what happened in the last play. So Australia on an attack around halfway and Caitlin House sees a bit of space in behind. Obviously, it's a very different game in terms of space opening up in the backfield in the last play. And she puts the kick in behind. Lottie Sharp catches it and kicks the ball out and takes full time.
Yeah.
Before I say my take, I want to hear yours first.
Yeah. Okay. So in the moment, I watched the second half of this game, just stood up like, my TV is here, I am here. Like, I was just like stood up, like face straight in it. And honestly, it's one of the best ways to watch rugby game I discovered. I was like, this is brilliant. Like, I'm loving this. And you're just sort of like, eyes fully in the breakdown. I wasn't thinking about anything else. There was no urge to pick up your phone at any point. Like, none of that. I was
so
just
you get
fully
like
in
life-size Hope Rogers like in front of your eyes. Like
exactly. Yeah. It's like living in IMAX. And they should make a Hope Rogers movie in IMAX. They may yet make an Alona Mar movie in
I'd
IMAX.
imagine, yeah. Both of those are in production right now.
Yeah. So I was like straight up and my eyes just widened. I didn't even say anything. I could just like feel my eyes kind of like bulge out my head. I was just like, oh, okay. Like, fascinating decision. I think she was attempting a 50-22 that Sharp then prevented going out. The thing is, she kicked it on about 80-12.
Yeah.
So it was right after the 80th minute. So I wonder if she thought she had more time, or maybe the stadium clock maybe she looked at the stadium clock when like, oh, we've got 20 seconds here, right? Then by the time the ball gets to her, because time moves weirdly when you're actually playing, actually it was over the deadline. I don't know. I think she was going for 50-22.
Or it was in protest that 50-22 should still allow play to continue.
I am also very pro.
I'm an advocate for that.
I think that 50-22 should be allowed in the last play, similar penalties. I just think it opens.
And she was doing that out of protest, to annoy Waldrop.
If that's the case, then I think it's a gamble that questionable.
If you pretend they've got 30 more seconds than they actually have. Yeah.
Then I get it.
Yeah.
I think it was on. Obviously didn't come off. But I also think, right, and like, yes, they just gone backwards a couple of phases. It's probably, you would gain more for just having another crack, right? That USA team is knackered. Yes, the Wallaroos are as well, but you want to be, which team would you rather be in that situation, right? Like, the ball is just inside your own half. The score is level. The opposition have the ball. Which team would you rather be, Australia or the USA?
You would rather be Australia, wouldn't you?
10 times out of 10.
This is I think it's a really interesting debate.
If the Wallaroos are in their own 22, you'd probably rather be the
USA.
Yeah. And the thing is, she didn't slap it down the middle. No. If she slapped it down the middle, then maybe she's putting the USA in the reverse situation.
Yeah.
Where you go, are we looking for jackal turnover? Are we looking for penalty? We know that their distance of touch finders, if we do give a penalty ourselves, if we go for every jackal, our distance of touch finders, their distance is like 5 metres, right? So we're not worried about getting to our own 22 unless there's a line break. So we back our defence, we look for a jackal, we look for a turnover, we make it downfield. She didn't go for that. She put it into the corner.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting debate because it's one of the biggest moments of captaincy you can have as a rugby player, is when you're drawn, and it comes down to the head coach as well, because they'll be getting messages onto the field of whether you take full time or whatever. But a lot of the time they will turn to the captain. It's like that cricket captaincy type thing where everything runs through them. A lot of people will turn to the captain and go, what do you want us to do, Skips? Do you want us to play on? Or what?
The famous one is Michael Leach 10 years ago in about 2 weeks' time.
Yes, indeed. But in that situation, right, what's probably happened, well, not what's probably happened, what my take at the time might have happened, which is a very different thing from probably, the USA had a phase, maybe two, of very slightly pushing them back, right? And if they kept on pushing them back and kept hold of the ball, bearing in mind the USA don't have a goal kicker who can slot it from more than, let's say, 22 metres out if there's an immediate turnover.
The other thing that happened, right, is the Wallaroos had lost about 20 metres on one bad pass.
Yes.
Right, before this.
Yes. And that's an important bit of context, right? So let's say, if the USA get the turnover there, it's not the end of the world, if they get like a penalty from there, because it's not like they're going to pull out, Francois Steyn to slap it over from 60 metres, Instead, they've got to go through a process to try and get into a situation where they can get 3 points, right?
Roger could probably kick them there, though.
Probably true. But instead of going backwards and risking that being the case and giving the USA a chance to attack from there, what I imagine Caitlin House has done is gone, we've got a couple of options. I can kick the ball out or we can carry on playing. And she originally thought, I can kick the ball out. And then went, you know what's better than that? Putting it on their terms, putting the ball in their court, literally. and getting it into the case where Lottie Sharp, then you can see she's literally like panicking. She can pick the ball up. She doesn't know what to do, whether the conventional thing to do is to just kick it out or to run in field or whatever.
Honestly, I would hate to be in that situation.
Yes.
Like I felt the same panic in the moment she clearly did, but a tenth of it.
Because when you're defending, you don't get the time to have that conversation that the USA did with the captain and their coach. Like, you don't get that message coming on the field necessarily.
At the very least, right, House can make a call to one other player and say, like, I'm going to kick this.
Yeah,
right. So
especially to say that that passage play started just outside the USA 22, right? At that point, you aren't getting the message on of, oh, if we win it back, run it. You're not going to say that when you're potentially running in your own 22, because at that point, they'll carry on playing until they drop it in their own sticks, right? However, instead, as you said earlier, Sharp takes this on the edge. She's not taking it in midfield. So if she's going to carry on running, considering she has a player in her face in Desiree Miller, her only option is to crab in field, get chop tackled by Desiree Miller, and potentially there could be an Ashley Masters over the ball there. Right, there is a lot of potential for a turnover. And so I see what Hulse was doing, because Sharp panics. All she has to do is panic enough that she doesn't want to risk getting bollocked by her coach in one moment, carries in field, gets turned over on first phase, jackal penalty, Australia kick for the posts.
On probability, I think Sharp does the right thing.
I agree.
She boots that out, right? If you look at her options,
because it was a good kick in isolation by Hulse.
The best case scenario, she steps everyone and beats scores a winning try.
Sure.
But realistically, the best case scenario is she makes an okay carry in the tackle against Miller.
Yeah.
Right? And she makes it up to her own 22, at which point her forwards need to get back in time, which you look at that short side, like there are not forwards about. So there's a very good chance you lose that ball immediately. Even then, even in the best case scenario, you retain the ball, you're on your own 22, you still need to play out from your own 22, and you haven't looked like doing that all game. Like the USA have got on top of their forwards. Their backs haven't been making these searing breaks.
Yeah.
So you're probably looking at needing to make another 80 metres up. You're looking at needing to not make a mistake and probably go through like 40 phases, having just defended for 15.
And let's be honest, they'd probably have to kick the ball at some point during that, even if it's a cross field or a chip in behind, because nothing else is working.
It's either that or it is like 30 phases, right?
Yeah.
So
or a freak carry by someone like Jetta Ember or whatever.
But that's the thing, right? It's like the odds are so slim of anything good coming out of that for the USA.
Yeah.
And otherwise, it's either you put it out and you take the draw, or you do things which will most likely result in a loss, and the odds of it becoming a win are so they're not worth the gamble.
It was much better than kicking it out would have been for Hulse.
Yeah. The odds, in terms of if you're to ignore take the possibility of being a draw out of there, right?
Yeah.
I would say the odds of the USA, if one team definitely wins and one team definitely loses, from Sharp taking it in, are like 70-30 to the Wallaroos.
I agree.
That wins it.
100% agree.
So she goes instead, okay, I'm putting this out because I've got a 50-50 chance at the moment of, do I take that chance? Do I give the Wallaroos a 70% chance of winning it? Or do I take the draw?
Yeah.
She takes the draw. I think that's the right thing to do. I think
Hulse went for draw at least, I think.
Yeah.
That was what she went for. And, that's not as good as necessarily just let's go all out for the win. But I think it wasn't stupid.
But that's it.
I wouldn't say it was smart necessarily.
House puts the Wallaroos in the situation where it's either the USA take an easy draw, or they gamble, but the dice is now loaded to Wallaroos.
And that's the thing.
That's
the Wallaroos
the thing. Like, it's hard
are in a better position in pool play.
Yeah.
And all that matters is who goes through to the quarterfinals.
I doubt she was thinking about the points difference.
She probably wasn't.
But yeah.
But, you know what I mean? You can't say it's a stupid thing to do when that is the case. That's the situation we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
Is that the Wallaroos go into England in a slightly better position than the USA go into Samoa. So, yeah, it's it's an interesting debate, I think.
It is. Okay. So
we've covered that game pretty comprehensively, I think.
We have. Final question.
Yeah.
Right. The USA need to make up 165 points on points difference on the final day. Australia playing England. They're playing Samoa. Right. Both games would need to be about an 80-point margin.
Yeah.
Do you think the USA can do it?
It's highly unlikely. I think Samoa have shown enough fight in them that if they can get England to a point where they're only losing that game by 89, which I know is a big margin, but against the USA you can probably chop 20 odd off that. And you'd imagine that the Wallaroos will try and keep England under 50.
If the USA go completely into kill mode and are completely relentless, then maybe, but we'll see.
It's quite funny as well, that the post-match interview that Emily
I was about to say, I was about to bring this up, right? So Emily Chancellor, after the match, says and if we can keep the score down against England, rather than, and then kind of pauses and goes oh no, or if we can win, if we can beat them.
Yeah.
And it's very much the mindset everyone's going into games against England with.
That would be the funniest outcome now, if they accidentally beat the Red Roses and ended the win streak.
Or just a win, thank you.